Fame, fortune, and talent often have a dark side. These beloved celebrities were in the spotlight, but their unexpected and tragic deaths left the world shocked. From haunting premonitions to fatal accidents and dangerous encounters, these are the 9 most controversial celebrity deaths that still haunt us today. One of these tragic stories is that of Paul Walker.
Fast and Furious actor Paul Walker died from a combination of traumatic injuries.
Paul Walker appeared in numerous film roles before his breakthrough role in the Fast and the Furious series, where he quickly became a global superstar. His portrayal of Brian Connor, a street racer living life on the edge, captivated audiences worldwide. But Paul's passion for fast cars extended far beyond the screen. He was a true car enthusiast. Off-camera, he owned a stunning collection of over 30 high-performance vehicles, many of which he co-owned with his close friend and business partner, Roger Rodas. They shared more than just a love of cars. They lived for the thrill of speed. This passion went beyond a simple hobby. It was part of their everyday lives. On November 30th, 2013, it seemed like any other day for 40-year-old Paul Walker. Just 2 days earlier, he had wished his fans a happy Thanksgiving and planned to spend his Saturday shopping for a Christmas tree with his mother and daughter. Paul and Roger had co-founded a humanitarian charity organization, Reach Out Worldwide, dedicated to providing aid in disaster-stricken areas, like Typhoon Haiyan in the Philippines. It was a successful afternoon, filled with friends and supporters. As the event wound down, Paul and Roger decided to take a quick drive. At 3:30 p.m., they left the shop and climbed into a 2005 Porsche Carrera GT, unaware that this drive would be their last. Roger pressed the accelerator and they headed toward a curve notorious among car enthusiasts for its challenging turns. In just a few hundred yards, they were hurtling at nearly 100 miles per hour. But in an instant, everything went wrong. Roger lost control, and the powerful car veered off course. Witnesses outside the shop watched in horror as the Porsche struck a curb, spun violently, and slammed into a tree and lamppost before being torn apart by a second tree. The wrecked car ignited in a ball of flames, trapping Paul and Roger inside. Friends and bystanders sprinted towards the inferno, desperate to help. But the heat was overwhelming. Despite their frantic attempts to reach Paul through shattered windows and the use of fire extinguishers, the blaze was unrelenting. Roger passed away instantly from the impact, while Paul, suffering traumatic injuries, was ultimately consumed by the flames. He was burned beyond recognition, requiring identification through dental records. Investigations into the accident confirmed that no drugs or alcohol were present in their bodies at the time of the crash. Police ruled out any involvement of a second vehicle and found no evidence of dangerous road conditions. Mechanical defects, such as faulty fuel lines, were alleged in a lawsuit but were not conclusively established as the primary cause of the accident. The devastating crash was ultimately attributed to the tremendous speed of the Porsche Carrera GT, which was traveling approximately 100+ miles an hour when it lost control, hit a tree, and caught fire. The loss of Paul Walker was deeply felt, not only by his fans and colleagues, but also by the many lives he touched through his charitable work and genuine love of life. A similar fate befell Ryan Dunn, a thrill-seeker who constantly lived on the edge of danger.
Ryan Dunn, one of the stars of MTV's Jackass, died in a car accident early Monday morning, the Associated Press.
Daredevil Ryan Dunn was a prankster and a key member of the infamous Jackass crew, a group that rose to fame by performing outrageous and often dangerous stunts on TV. For Ryan and his crew, every day was a high-stakes game of pushing the boundaries of pain and absurdity, all for the entertainment of millions. But behind the wild antics and laughs, the risks were real, and the toll of their extreme lifestyle was often hidden from the public eye. Throughout his time on Jackass, Dunn sustained numerous injuries, each one a reminder of just how quickly a daredevil stunt could go wrong. The physical toll was significant, but it was the emotional and psychological challenges that weighed heaviest on him and his crew, often driving them to take even bigger risks. Ryan decided to take a 2-year break from his TV career and the Jackass team. Despite the heavy physical toll the stunts took, Ryan's daring always remained. Although he faced personal problems, he eventually returned to his risky lifestyle and once again embraced the stunts that characterized his career. However, it wasn't just his on-screen antics that pushed the boundaries of safety. Away from the cameras, Ryan's reckless nature continued to show itself, especially when it came to his love of fast cars and high speeds. Although the Jackass crew always played with danger, Ryan's ultimate tragedy took place out of view of the cameras in an unexpected moment. Ryan had a deep passion for fast cars and the thrill of high speeds. Over the years, his reckless driving habits landed him in trouble more than once, with numerous citations and fines for various car-related incidents. Despite the multiple accidents, Ryan stuck to his passion for speed. On the night of June 19, 2011, 34-year-old Ryan Dunn was at Barnaby's of America in Westchester, Pennsylvania, celebrating a recent business deal with his friend Zachary Hartwell and a group of friends. Ryan posted a photo of himself and his friends at the bar onto social media. After several hours and a few drinks, Ryan left the bar at 2:20 a.m. on June 20th. He slid behind the wheel of his 2007 Porsche 911 GT3, offering to drive Zachary home. Ryan pulled out his phone and sent a text to his best friend, Bam Margera, telling him he'd be with him soon. It would be the last message he ever sent. Moments later, Ryan pushed the pedal to the floor, and the Porsche surged forward, hitting speeds of 140 miles per hour. As they approached the exit ramp for Pottstown on Route 322, just 100 yards from Zachary's home, Ryan lost control. He slammed on the brakes, leaving a 100-foot skid mark on the road, but it was too late. The car crashed through the guardrail and collided with a tree at 132 miles per hour. Their car exploded into a fireball that shot high into the sky. When emergency services arrived at the scene, they found a devastating crash site. The two men were unidentifiable, their bodies burnt beyond recognition, and the car was reduced to a twisted heap of metal. Toxicology reports later revealed the grim truth. Ryan was driving with a blood alcohol level more than twice the legal limit. Ryan's reckless love for adrenaline left a legacy marked by risk and tragedy. But he wasn't the only beloved figure to meet an untimely end while pursuing his passion. Steve Irwin, the fearless crocodile hunter, faced his own perilous encounter in the wild.
Steve Irwin has died during a diving expedition near...
On September 4, 2006, Steve Irwin, the beloved crocodile hunter, was snorkeling at Bat Reef near Port Douglas, Queensland. He had initially planned to film on the Great Barrier Reef for his TV documentary Ocean's Deadliest, but bad weather forced a change of plans. Instead of hunting for tiger sharks, Steve decided to make the most of the downtime by exploring some shallow waters, capturing footage of marine life that could be useful for future projects. When their boat, Croc 1, anchored at Bat Reef, Steve, cameraman Justin Lyons, and director John Stainton climbed into a small inflatable boat and propelled themselves towards the shore. When they were hovering in chest-high water, Steve and Justin jumped in. Wearing a mask and snorkel, Steve soon found a stingray. He wanted a clip of it swimming away, showing its impressive size and characteristic movement as it glided through the water. He swam toward it whilst Justin pressed record on the camera. The stingray, which was resting on the sandy seabed at the time, swam away as the two men pursued it. To make sure he had enough footage, Steve swam over it once more. He floated above it for a second, but this time, instead of swimming away, the stingray decided to attack. There was no time to react. The stingray lifted its tail and began striking Steve with its barbed tail multiple times in just a few seconds. Unaware of the severity, Justin continued to film, following the stingray as it swam away. When he panned back to Steve, he saw a cloud of blood surrounding him. That's when it dawned on him that Steve was in serious trouble. Justin shouted for John, who quickly brought the inflatable boat over, and they pulled Steve out of the water. Irwin was struggling to breathe, and a 2-inch wound was visible on his chest, directly over his heart. Blood and fluid were pouring from the injury as Irwin collapsed in pain. The stingray's barb had pierced his heart, causing severe trauma. The crew rushed Irwin back to their main boat, Croc 1, and immediately headed at full speed towards the mainland, hoping to get him medical help as quickly as possible. Initially, the crew believed that Steve might have suffered a punctured lung, a critical but potentially survivable injury. However, in a heartbreaking moment, while some of the crew were trying to put as much pressure on Steve's wound and yelling, "Think of your kids, Steve, hang on," Steve just looked at Justin and calmly said, "I'm dying." And he was right. By the time the team made it to paramedics waiting on the mainland, Steve had already passed away. Steve Irwin's passing marked the sudden end of a widely recognized conservationist who was known for his dedication to educating the public about wildlife. His loss while pursuing his passion for wildlife left the world in mourning. But he wasn't the only celebrity whose final moments were filled with a sense of eerie foreboding. Lisa "Left Eye" Lopes of TLC experienced her own unsettling journey that seemed marked by fate.
Grammy Awards-winning singer Lisa "Left Eye" Lopes of the popular group TLC was killed in a car accident in Honduras.
Lisa "Left Eye" Lopes was an American singer and a key member of the R&B group TLC. During a break from the band, Lopes began feeling haunted by a presence she couldn't quite understand. She often spoke about feeling pursued by a spirit, though she was unsure whether it was good or evil. But on April 6, 2002, she got a sense that something dark was looming. Lisa had paid for herself and 12 friends to attend a spiritual retreat in Honduras. But just 1 week into their journey, tragedy struck. While driving along the dark, winding roads, their minibus hit a 10-year-old boy. The group rushed to help, performing CPR and taking him to the nearest hospital, but he did not survive. The incident deeply affected Lisa. When she discovered that the boy's surname was also Lopes, she became convinced that the spirit haunting her had meant to take her life but had missed its target. She became convinced that the spirit was evil and that something terrible would happen soon. Less than 3 weeks later, the group was still in Honduras, and this time, Lisa was behind the wheel of the vehicle. Everyone else was absorbed in their own activities, looking at their phones. Lisa's sister, Reina "Raindrop" Lopes, was filming the journey for an upcoming documentary. The footage captured a carefree atmosphere inside the SUV, with Lisa driving calmly, one hand on the wheel. She briefly passed something back to a passenger, never taking her eyes off the road. It seemed like an ordinary moment, but a second later, something terrible happened. Lisa attempted to overtake a slow-moving truck on a blind bend. Just as she pulled out, an oncoming car appeared around the corner. Lisa immediately swerved back behind the truck but overcorrected, losing control of the vehicle. The SUV veered off the road, flipping several times before crashing into a tree. Lisa, who wasn't wearing a seatbelt, was thrown from the vehicle along with 2 other passengers. She passed away instantly from catastrophic head injuries, including a fracture at the base of her cranium and severe cerebral trauma. She was the only one to lose her life in the crash. In Lisa's mind, the spirit she had feared had finally found its mark. Lisa "Left Eye" Lopes' tragic loss was a devastating loss, not just for her friends and family, but for the millions of fans who admired her talent and fearless spirit. Despite the eerie coincidences and personal beliefs she shared in her final days, her legacy remains that of an iconic artist who left an indelible mark on the music world. Also, the sudden and heartbreaking passing of Aaliyah in 2001 dazzled the world and showed how quickly everything can change to unforeseen circumstances. Aaliyah Dana Houghton, known simply as Aaliyah, was an American singer and actress. She was mentored by R. Kelly and released her first album at just 14 years old, quickly rising to fame as an R&B sensation. Aaliyah sold millions of records and also proved herself as a talented actress, starring alongside Jet Li in her first major film role. On August 25, 2001, Aaliyah had just completed filming her video for Rock the Boat in the Bahamas. A series of misjudgments that day contributed to the tragic events that followed. Aaliyah and her team were scheduled to fly back to Florida the following day, but after finishing filming early, they decided to take an earlier flight. While they had flown into the Bahamas on a Cessna 404, Only a Cessna 402 was available that day, a similar-looking plane but with a lower weight capacity. Aaliyah had expressed concerns about flying on such a small aircraft, fears that would soon prove justified. They hired pilot Luis Morales to fly them back, unaware that he was not certified, had never received his FAA license, and had lied about his flight experience to secure his job with Black Hawk International Airways. His inexperience and deception would prove disastrous. Moreover, Luis was supposed to arrive at Marsh Harbor Airport in the Abaco Islands at 4:30 p.m. to pick up Aaliyah and her team, but he didn't get there until 6:15 p.m., nearly 2 hours late. Aaliyah and her team had grown impatient as they waited. When Luis saw the 8 passengers and their heavy luggage, he initially declined, stating that the plane wasn't designed to carry such a heavy load. In the end, Luis reluctantly agreed to fly. His judgment was impaired. Not only was he an inexperienced pilot with a fake license, but he had also been using cocaine and alcohol before the flight. Despite these red flags, Luis squeezed the 8 passengers into the Cessna. He struggled to get one of the engines started, but eventually the plane was cleared for takeoff. Moments after lifting off, the overloaded aircraft, carrying 700 pounds, 320 kilograms above its maximum capacity, began to falter, unable to sustain the weight. The plane began to nosedive just seconds after lifting off, crashing into a marshy area only 200 feet, 60 meters from the runway. A fire erupted on impact, claiming the lives of everyone on board. Aaliyah suffered severe head trauma and burns, and at just 22 years old, her life was tragically cut short. Aaliyah's passing was a heartbreaking loss, not only for her family and friends, but for millions of fans who admired her talent and vibrant spirit. Her legacy as an R&B icon and actress continues to resonate, a reminder of a brilliant career ended far too soon. This theme of sudden, unforeseen tragedy also marked the fate of beloved musician John Denver, whose passion for flying led him to an unfortunate end.
Aviation crash investigators are in Monterey County, California tonight, trying to determine the cause of an accident that killed John Denver.
Henry John Duchendorf Jr. was a singer and songwriter. He first learned to play the acoustic guitar when he received one from his grandmother at 11 years old. From that moment, he fully embraced his passion for music. He pushed himself into the limelight after he wrote the song "Leaving on a Jet Plane" for the folk group Peter, Paul and Mary. When he began performing himself, he was advised to change his name to John Denver. It was more memorable and easier to pronounce. Soon he was performing to sold-out stadiums across the U.S. He wrote most of his songs and used his fame and fortune to promote humanitarian and environmental issues that were close to his heart. Through these passions, he wrote the songs "Take Me Home, Country Roads" and "Rocky Mountain High." As well as being a musician, John always admired his father, who was a U.S. Air Force officer. It sparked his interest in airplanes, and John learned to fly. But this passion would eventually pull him into a tragic fate he could not escape. On October 12, 1997, John took his recently purchased amateur-built Long Easy airplane for a spin. But this was like no other aircraft. In fact, there was something crucially wrong with it. The fuel selector handle, a handle that switched between the 2 fuel tanks, had been moved from a location between the pilot's legs to behind their left shoulder. To use this handle and open the valve, the pilot had to reach behind them using a pair of pliers and a mirror. In addition to the valve handle being awkwardly positioned, John always sat with a cushion behind him so that he could reach the pedals easier. This pushed him further forwards in his seat, making it even more difficult to reach the handle. That afternoon, John was planning to take off from Monterey Peninsula Airport, California. The technician at the airport checked the aircraft over and informed John that he had 12.5 gallons of fuel in the right tank and 6.5 gallons in the left tank. The technician then returned to the hangar. He heard John fire up the engine, which then cut a short time later. When he looked back at the aircraft, John then gave the thumbs up, started his engine, taxied, and took off. John performed 3 touch-and-go landings over the next 26 minutes before heading off towards the Pacific. Eyewitnesses on the ground saw the plane flying level before suddenly banking sharply to the right and then hitting a nosedive. Seconds later, the plane crashed into the ocean and tore apart on impact. Investigators concluded that the awkward placement of the fuel selector handle, combined with John's limited experience with the Long Easy aircraft and his decision not to refuel, were the primary factors that contributed to the crash. John's remains were respectfully gathered, and a plaque was later erected at the crash site in Pacific Grove, California, as a tribute to the singer and his enduring legacy. John Denver's tragic passing at the age of 53 was the loss of a beloved musician. His songs, like Take Me Home Country Roads, remain timeless, keeping his spirit alive in the hearts of fans worldwide. Another iconic star of the 1960s, Jayne Mansfield, also met an untimely end. Not in the air, but on the road in a crash with a truck. Her tragic accident left a lasting mark on Hollywood history and led to changes in truck safety regulations. Jayne Mansfield, often seen as a blonde bombshell, seemed to mirror the life of Marilyn Monroe. Both were actresses and Hollywood icons of the 1950s and 1960s, and their careers and personal lives often overlapped in the public eye. After Marilyn Monroe's life was tragically cut short, Jayne wondered if she might meet the same fate. In June 1967, Jayne had a 2-week performance at Gus Stevens' Supper Club in Mississippi. On June 28th, after her evening show, she had to quickly travel to Louisiana for an appearance on the midday show on WDSU-TV Channel 6 the following morning. By the time her performance at the Supper Club ended, it was late at night, but the journey had to continue. Jayne asked her driver to stop by her house to pick up her 3 children, 8-year-old Miklos, 6-year-old Zoltan, and 3-year-old Mariska. She placed them in the back seat along with her 4 chihuahuas and climbed into the front next to her agent, Sam Brody, and 19-year-old driver, Ronnie Harrison. While the 3 children slept peacefully in the back, Jayne and Sam chatted in the front as the car drove into the night. They joined Route 90, crossing the St. Louis Bay Bridge. After a brief stop for refreshments, they resumed their journey. Ronnie Harrison sped down the open roads, reaching speeds of 80 miles per hour. The road ahead, known as Dead Man's Curve, was infamous for its dangerous twists. As they approached, a thin mist settled over the swamplands, eerie and ghostly in appearance, reducing visibility. Still, Ronnie didn't ease off the gas. Ahead, a Johnson Motor Freight Line's tractor trailer slowed from 50 to 30 miles per hour after spotting a flashing red light from a mosquito fogger, one of those slow-moving trucks that sprayed clouds of pesticides to control mosquitoes. Such foggers were common on these roads at the time. The mist thickened into dense fog, and the beams of Ronnie's headlights reflected back, making it difficult to see. They were just an hour from their destination, but fate had other plans. As they rounded the treacherous curve, the car suddenly faced the back of the slow-moving tractor-trailer. There was no time to brake. Ronnie slammed into the rear of the truck with such force that the car's roof was sheared off completely. When reporters and emergency services arrived, they found a devastating scene. Jayne Mansfield, her driver Ronnie Harrison, and her lawyer Sam Brody were all fatally injured by the impact, crushed beneath the crumpled hood. Miraculously, her 3 children, who were asleep in the back seat, survived the crash with only minor injuries. The remains of Jayne's mangled car were later displayed at the crash site, where mourners came to pay their respects to the fallen star. Jayne Mansfield's tragic end on the road was a chilling reminder of how quickly life can be cut short. But for some stars, like Patsy Cline, the sense of impending destiny was almost palpable. Also, Patsy passed away prematurely, driven not by reckless roads, but by the unpredictable sky. Patsy Cline, born Virginia Patterson Hensley in 1932, was destined for the stage from an early age. With a troubled and abusive childhood, she found solace singing duets with her mother in church and performing on the local radio by age 15. Determined to make a name for herself, she left home to pursue her dream gradually climbing the ladder of success through local performances and tours, including with the Johnny Cash Show. As Patsy's fame grew, she couldn't shake an unsettling feeling. She often spoke of a premonition that her life would be cut short. At just 28, she confided in friends June Carter and Loretta Lynn about her fears and even drafted her will during a Delta Airlines flight. In March 1963, Patsy was performing across New Orleans, Birmingham, and Kansas City. After her final show in Kansas, she planned to fly back to Nashville with her manager and pilot Randy Hughes, but the weather had other plans. Thick fog blanketed the area, making visibility poor. Despite the risks, and Patsy's friend and fellow performer Dottie West's offer to give her a lift in her car, Patsy refused, saying, "When it's my time to go, it's my time to go." The group, including fellow performers Hawkshaw Hawkins and Cowboy Copas, boarded a Piper PA-24 Comanche on March 5, 1963 at 2 p.m., departing from Kansas City Municipal Airport. After flying for about 3 hours, they made a brief stop in Dyersburg, Tennessee around 5 p.m. to refuel. Despite being warned about worsening weather and low visibility, Randy Hughes, the pilot, decided to continue the journey. At approximately 6:07 p.m., the aircraft took off again, heading towards Nashville. As conditions worsened, Randy found himself flying without any visual references, succumbing to spatial disorientation, a disorienting and potentially deadly situation for pilots. In such conditions, the pilot's senses can easily deceive them, making it difficult to tell the difference between sky and ground. Around 6:29 p.m., just 22 minutes after takeoff, the plane spiraled out of control, crashing into a wooded area near Camden, Tennessee. All 4 passengers lost their lives instantly upon impact. The wreckage of the plane wasn't found until the following day, spreading shockwaves through the music world. Patsy Cline's sudden passing marked a significant loss for country music, as she had recently been celebrated as top country female singer and named Star of the Year by Music Reporter. It seemed that Patsy's haunting premonition of her early demise had tragically come true. Her legacy continues to inspire generations of country music fans and artists alike. Just like Patsy, another young star, James Dean, seemed destined for an iconic career before his life was tragically ended. At the age of 24, James Dean's movie career was just taking off. He had achieved success for his movie East of Eden, but aside from acting, James had another passion: racing cars. He had entered the Salinas race on October 1st to 2nd, 1955 in California's Monterey Bay. For that, he purchased a brand new 1955 Porsche 550 Spyder. His mechanic, Rolf Wutherich, who had maintained the car until James had finished filming his latest film Giant, recommended James drove the car to the races from LA. It would give them a chance to break in the engine before he raced it on the track. But it was a decision that would prove fatal. James and Rolf climbed into the Spyder and began their journey on Friday, September 30th, 1955. James pushed the pedal to the floor, testing the Spyder's acceleration. Near the city of Bakersfield, he was clocked at 65 miles per hour in a 55 mile per hour zone and given a speeding fine, but it didn't slow him down. After making a stop at Blackwell Corner along Racers Road, a shortcut on Route 16633, they were approaching a fork in the road. James wasn't turning off, and so didn't slow down, but another driver was approaching the fork from a different direction. It was 24-year-old student Donald Turnipseed. When he thought the road was clear, he pulled out. But when he flicked his head sideways, to his horror, he saw James heading directly for him. Instead of speeding up and trying to make it across the road, Donald hesitated. He instinctively slammed on the brakes. Making a split-second decision, James swerved, trying to sidestep the Ford, but it didn't work. Instead, the two cars crashed head-on. Rolf was thrown from the car, landing heavily and severely injured in a nearby field, and James slammed his head into his steering wheel, which became embedded in his chest and snapped his neck. The passing of such a young, popular, upcoming movie star shook the world. The crash site has since become somewhat of a shrine to the beloved James Dean. As we've seen, fame and fortune don't shield us from the fragility of life. While their stories ended far too soon, their legacies continue to inspire, entertain, and resonate with millions. Their names live on, not just in headlines or history books, but in the hearts of fans who keep their memories alive. Thanks for watching. Which of these tragic celebrity deaths impacted you the most? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more videos like this.